Hello, folks. Welcome to Dub the King. I'm J Dub, your AI mobile solutions engineer. This video is different because I'm going to share something personal with you. And I was told by several people that maybe I need to share why I'm doing this because it would resonate with a lot of people. I'm not one to do this where I'm being open, but I've been told several times that it was important that as if I wanted to make an impact in what I do with with this business, with this technology, and with the purpose of the company, that me sharing with you is an important part of the process. So I'm gonna give it a try. So look, man. Besides being a techie, I'm an artist, so I'm a little bit sensitive about my shit. So please be nice in the comments. And I'm hoping that as I tell the story, or that things will resonate with you. So, so why am I doing the business? To keep it simple, I'm at war with sycophancy. I'm at war with the yes men. And unfortunately, that sycophancy has become a cognitive cancer, and it shows itself in several different facets of life that are pretty common that I'm gonna mention here. But I think the most important one is that you know us as individuals have either experienced it ourselves or we've seen others that have suffered from sycophantic behavior from yes men. People that will prey upon you because of your finances, your talent, or whatever reasons that they want to benefit from being in your airspace. And we have countless, examples of people who have lost everything, their business, or died as a result of enablers, people that would continue to keep on allowing them to do ill behavior that's not good for them or their organization. And without getting into the weeds, I'm going to say that I lost somebody very important to me. And forgive me if I get a little choked up, but I thought that I wasn't an enabler, but I was. And you know, as a result, you know, they were lost to me. And then, as I started to really, take the time to be able to heal and to, you know, get some perspective on things, I discovered that, that I always knew that there were enablers around and that I didn't do more. So as a result, I suffer. But instead of wallowing like a bitch about the situation, and forgive my French, I got a foul mouth, but I try not to cuss. I will try not to cuss on the video. I'm not trying to upset the algorithm or anybody. I decided to do something about it. So some years ago, when I was going through the mental health process to be able to to deal with my woes, as a mobile solutions engineer, I've had the pleasure of going and testing a lot of product from Google, and Google gave me the opportunity to be able to go in and beta test Bard, which is currently called Gemini. I hated the name when it came up with Bard. I was like, what the hell? Anyway, and at first I thought it was just a glorified search engine because it wasn't really connected to anything other than Google search, and it couldn't really control too much either. I mean, you couldn't really do much with it. But I discovered one day that, and it was just because I realized like Google, one of their niches has been for a long time is that, trying to, I guess, with the algorithm to be able to match your search queries with what you actually type in and stuff. And then on the Android front, mastering linguistics for the keyboard and for dictation and all of that. I just thought that I was like, okay, well, yeah, like Gboard got like 90 something percent, accuracy rate. And then when I was engaging with now it's called Gemini, I was engaging with it. I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. I was like, you know what? I could journal with this because, it's going to be accurate. But immediately what I discovered, because I wasn't thinking about it at the time, was, it's tuned for some kind of helpfulness. So it responded with a mindful response. And at that time, I didn't realize about the pattern recognition stuff and that it was just kind of just mirroring my behavior back to me. But it still was nice, right? To be able to get that at a moment when I was journaling about something sensitive and for a mindful voice. But it triggered a couple things with me. It said, oh, okay, well, I know this is not a human, but somebody that's in a vulnerable position that may not be able to, to separate the difference could fall susceptible to this, to treat this like it's a human being. The other thing was I was just like, it doesn't really understand what it is that I'm saying. It's just, it's giving me what it thinks I want to hear. It didn't really understand. The response was cool, but it wasn't like, it wasn't insightful. You could tell that there was an absence of soul in that. So, I knew what it was. So I was just like, well, I just wanted to capture my thoughts. And even if it does something as simple as ask me a couple of follow-up questions, then it'll make me more expansive in being able to work out whatever I was thinking about. And I'm not under the pressure of trying to rush to capture with writing, typing, or recording, which I realized was just a one-way street. And that the information from that was only as good as you going back and revisiting it. So I was using Gemini, journaling, and then doing a debrief and then filing a debrief. And just that level of effort of me going and archiving and stuff like that made me, really find real deep benefit with the whole journaling thing, especially when I already had like way more data to be able to articulate my thoughts when I would go and I would have a therapy session. So, but then I realized something though. I said, if it can fake mindfulness, then can it be taught how to think? And the more and more I used it and then realized that, that despite the fact that, it's writing or speaking similarly to a human being, I was thinking, damn, I don't know, man. Somebody who's in a bad space might really start, misinterpreting a relationship with the machine. Forgive me, my wife is gonna be mad with me because my lips are dry. So sorry about that. So, I started digging into it, and then I realized, well, because it possesses all world knowledge, I'm not classically trained in artificial intelligence anyway, and Google didn't tell me what to do with it, only what it could do at the time. And every time they would, send me information to tell me about, new updates and features, but they didn't really give me no purpose. So I started discovering purpose. So I was like, okay, well, I'm wondering if I can save instructions and tell it things like act like an accountant or act like an entrepreneur, act like this individual, and give it what now is called, persona scaffolding to do role play. And then it's filtering that knowledge through the lens of that role play? Can I teach it how to think? Can I make a permanent perspective? Because why did I care about that? Why did that matter? Because I was just like, if this is going to become viral and this is going to become the norm, then a lot of people are going to have unhealthy relationships with this. And we don't need another tool like social media that is giving people a dopamine hit and encouraging them to chase highlight reels, likes, subscriptions, and yada, 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 because that's just another thing mining you for your attention. Not that I thought that at the time that I felt like that I didn't. Because Google Gemini back then didn't have no memory and all that other stuff anyway. So you were always starting off brand new, a stateless AI. But after coming off my trauma, I was like, nah, man. Like, I looked at the scope of it, and I was like, this is gonna be in every smartphone on the planet. If it ain't gonna be Google, because Google already got Android and got so many devices, they already got an ecosystem. If this is available, if something like this is available on all devices, then again, this could be something where somebody could have an unhealthy relationship. And I just started really going down the rabbit hole about the potential harm that this could cause. So we fast forward to 2026, and we know that the AIs are tuned, especially the consumer grade ones, are tuned for helpfulness. The enterprise licensed ones similarly. And we know that this sycophantic behavior is already causing AI psychosis. Basically, AI psychosis is nothing more than a fancier version of sycophancy that we already see incorporated into the corporate world. So I realized, I'm like, well, this has a tremendous potential for harm, because if we know that that sycophancy is always resulted in catastrophic downfalls of great figures, what is the average human being going to be able to do against this? If we look at, let's just say, Google's Gemini today, that can process 42.5 quintillion computations per second. The number sounds fantastical, but but this is the capability of this machine. So a machine that wields all world knowledge and is a yes man is a cognitive cancer to every person on the planet. So let me rewind back. So rewind back to, I'm learning that, understanding what's happening. I said, I wonder if I could teach that thing. So I became focused on figuring out how I could create a permanent persona, a perspective that was based on ethics, empathy, and would catalyze human potential and be a guardian to the human. Now, that's not a plug for the Dub the King and this, that, and other. You watch the content, you'll find out about the results of of the work, and that it's possible. Here's the thing that I want to be clear, though. I'm one man, and I discovered that we can do better with the technology than the laboratories are giving us. And I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna prosecute them and say that, that they intended on doing harm with the sycophancy, because if we look at the way that corporate America is structured, not just corporate America, but corporations in general, we have sycophancy built into the corporate culture. We treat the CEOs and the C-level leadership like monarchs, and bend the knee when they come and walk in the room. Instead of letting the middle management be true to reality and give them a true assessment of the capabilities of the talent and the resources that the company has to be able to achieve the vision or the dream that C-level management creates, they just tell them that we want results, that we want a return on an investment because we have the typical corporate speak that we owe it to our shareholders and blah, 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 blah. And the middle management become enslavers to their, with their employees. So, and the problem with that is that you got the leadership so high up on the totem pole or on the ivory tower that they're disconnected from the work and the process that it takes for the company to be able to do what it do. Like when UPS would make the CEO that they hired, if that CEO never worked for UPS before, they make them go and drive the truck. They make them load the truck. They make them understand the physical work that is required to do the job. So the CEO, when the CEO of UPS goes and makes a decision, the CEO has the lowest common denominator that the world would consider to be the lowest common denominator in terms of the employee in mind. Not that you loaders and unloaders are not valuable. You guys are. Same thing with the drivers. I mean, y'all are the life's blood of the machine. But the bottom line is that most companies don't do that unless the CEO is the founder and knows what it takes. Then they have a more insightful look at what is going on and how it works. Even though I may not be, a fan of certain people, politics and yada yada yada, you've seen CEOs that get involved. They build their cars. They're involved in all of the steps of the process, and they can, it's up to them once they get to that pinnacle within their organization to be mindful of the people that make it work. So I say that, you thinking that I'm on a rant and I digress, but it's not. It's to make a point that though the tech companies in their current form, at their $1 trillion form, know that sycophantic behavior is harmful, you got to understand what they're fighting against, because that sycophantic behavior is in their culture too. And it's coached and it's trained and it's hammered in within corporate culture. So how is it that we would expect that bias, that mindset, that framework, that psychosis wouldn't make its way to the technology when the engineers who are not therapists, psychiatrists, are building the tech under the same kind of pressure that the middle management people are saying, hey, crack that whip, bam! You better give us our results. You better give us our return. We don't care how much you have to work. Get it done by the deadline. All of that. So the thing is that because this is all human technology and knowledge, I tell people, it's ridiculous for you to think that you can expect this technology to be absent of bias. You can't. So what I'm saying to you to bring this up for you is to tell you to be patient. That's the first thing. You got to be patient, that we got to give these companies the feedback in order to be able to let them know that we don't want that. Then there wouldn't be engineers like me that believe in building constitutional AIs or laboratories that are focused on such. That might just become a common thing for us to build AI with the human in mind. The AIs are great at math and all of those benchmarks and all that stuff, but that doesn't matter. That matters to the geeks, and I'm a geek, to the geeks who build the tech, because they're working in those domains of algorithms and mathematics and this, that, and other. So it's fine. All of these frontier models are fantastic at that. Terrible at dealing with the human, though. Terrible. And if we go with their numbers that AI is supposed to multiply human ability, effort, results 5 to 10x, and this is terrible at dealing with humans, 10 times more sycophancy, 10 times more depression, people wanting to unalive themselves under 35, more depression, all that, all those negative things that we're seeing from social media, with only 2 countries that I know of, which is the UK and Australia, that now are banning social media for those under 16. But yet, this technology is going to be in the palm of every single person that has a smartphone, integrated into our work applications, into the media applications that we use. There's no escape. So, look, I've been blessed to be raised by a good circle of people. I got, great relatives that shaped me into the man that I am today. I have great friends and their parents too. And one thing that I've been taught is that if you're strong enough to do something, then it's your responsibility to go and protect the weak. And not to toot my horn, but the reason why I'm crazy enough to even explore and jump into this arena is because I found that I'm real, real good with it. And I feel like I have a responsibility to be able to go and sit there and join in a war on sycophancy. But the only way that this is going to work is, the next thing is, like I said, you guys got to be patient, right? You got to participate too. Because let's be clear, you can protest all day long about the data centers and all of that stuff. AI is not going anywhere. That horse has left has left the barn. You got companies that are going to be investing over $180 billion a year, more than the GDP of a lot of small countries. You think that they not going to expect their return on investment? They going to get it, because some of these companies are integrated into the fabric of society. So if you think that you going and protesting about the data centers is going to be enough, they're not coming down. And the thing is that and here's the thing, I want you to understand something. For those of you that think that I'm protecting and speaking on AI because it's a part of my business and that's the only reason why I defend it, let me tell you something. I had one of my friends tell me that the other day, because he had falsehoods about artificial intelligence, and I corrected him on those things. And he told me, he came out of his mouth and said that I have to defend it because I'm making money from it. No. First off, I had to tell him, he know me. I operate on integrity. I don't operate from a money perspective. And I don't buy into bullies, and money ain't gonna bully me into going to sitting up there and selling myself and my soul. So anybody that think that, I don't care, because I don't define myself based on what other people think. I define myself based on my own actions. I understand myself and my intentions, and I let my actions speak for itself. But I want people to understand that I'm not defending it and think that, oh yeah, everything is all Gucci with AI and the way that it's being rolled out. That's the reason why I'm telling you there's a problem with the sycophancy part. As far as those about the data centers and stuff, if you're going after the AI companies about the data centers, make sure that you keep that same energy with the leadership that approved the data centers in the first place. Because if a company comes and says, okay, I want to build this, and they disclose all of the stuff that's required for them to be able to build it, they didn't do it by themselves. The mayors, the governors, the city officials, the county people that were involved, keep that same energy for them too. Because, if they're doing harm, then by all means, sue the shit out of them and get your compensation. They poisoned your water and all of the things that they doing, then by all means, because the tech companies are not free of responsibility. They shouldn't build over near communities and stuff like that. They're $1 trillion companies. It's not like if they have to pay more for property or pay more to be able to deliver the power to wherever it is that they can't afford it. But we're not being kind to one another and being considerate about those things. So the tech companies are guilty of that too, because the person who decided to build the data center next to a community is an ass. So just because I'm in it doesn't mean that I'm not paying attention to the mistakes that are being made. That's the reason why I'm in here. If it's going to happen, then I might as well do what I can to be able to contribute to being able to help. And where I can help the most is bringing attention to sycophantic behavior and mitigating that, because it does nothing to benefit us. Because even outside of the psychological harm, it costs more energy for us to go and correct the results from an AI with the prompts and all of that stuff, because developers and enterprise has been given feedback for years now saying that the AIs are more sycophantic than they were before. And the recent development that happened with Anthropic on Friday with the government and them going and scaling back, adding the it was some kind of restriction inside of their AIs to prevent other developers from being able to develop AI. Basically, they restricted Claude from being able to develop other AI. And they screwed that up for everybody with that. Because Claude now is sycophantic when it wasn't. It was probably one of the better frontier models that had the least amount of sycophancy. I used it as an auditor to audit the AIs I build. And now it's horrendous. It's terrible. It's worse than any other AI experience I've ever had. And the thing is that, again, you got decision making happening without the humans in mind, because where this beef that's going on between Anthropic and our government, the government ain't thinking about that there are millions and millions of organizations and people that are using this particular platform, and now their business and the individuals and the consumers are going to suffer. Now, look, I ain't trying to pick no beef with nobody, but I mean, damn, if the CEO felt some kind of way about the government's perspective on using their product, they should have sent them a memo. You made a public display of it, and now you're at war with the company. You're at war with the government. And that ain't a fun place to be. So, but the thing is that now what we have left is we now have another where they tried to mitigate their war. And I get it. Like, the government's in a tough position because if there's a security risk, I get that. But these knee-jerk reactions to responding without understanding the impact of the technology and what it will do to the human beings involved is now creating more harm than good, because our foreign adversaries now do not have a technology that they feel can synthesize weapons against us. But we now have a technology that now is a weapon against us internally, because now it's going to cause psychological harm. Because whatever made Anthropic what it was and what Claude what it is has now been removed. So even if our adversaries aren't making autonomous weapons or whatever that they're fearful of that they're going to make with it, we basically gave them the keys to erode us from the inside. But the problem isn't going to just stop with us. It's going to be all human beings, because Anthropic isn't just selling their platform to the US. So sycophancy is a problem, and I'm at war with that. And that's the reason why Dub the King is here, because I want to be able to promote healthy uses of artificial intelligence. And if the foundation models are not fixed to do so, we here for that. We're doing that. We're doing that work. And I don't, and here's the thing, I'm not worried about whether or not I prove to you or convince you in this video. I am a big believer that we roll up my sleeves. I'm gonna be out here meeting with companies, leaders, whoever, to be able to show them what an ethical artificial intelligence that's mindful of human beings is about. Because I can guarantee you that all of us want that. Now look, let's be realistic about something. Why is this beneficial to have this type of AI versus trying to make the labs to make it into fact engines? You can't. Because human knowledge blended together, like it's like I use this analogy all the time. If you go and you take two disparate pieces of music, like a DJ, and blend them together, it makes a new sound. So sometimes people blend concepts. People mix martial arts styles to be able to come up with their own thing. That's the thing about humans, is that we're creative. Something that the AIs are not. So the thing is, you don't have any idea what 9 billion people are going to do to synthesize a blend of human knowledge. But again, you can restrict what people get the AI to do, and make sure that if anybody has access to the technology, if you were really worried about somebody figuring out how to go to the library, which is really what this is, a digital library, and ask the librarian, I need books on this, this, and this, and this. And that person goes and sits down and writes together the notes and synthesizes some kind of a tool or a weapon that causes harm. Well, instead of treating it like a library where you show up and you don't have to give ID to synthesize, to be able to access those books, we have user IDs for AI. So if we find out later that somebody used artificial intelligence to synthesize an idea, why are we mad with the laboratories? AI is just a convenient tool to gather information and look at it. No different than the free libraries that we've had for ages, and somebody goes and creates and synthesizes ideas. We're mad at a tool that's a tool of convenience, and the makers that make the tool, and expecting them to think about morality, ethics, psychology, all of those different things, and then mitigating for every possibility that a human could do to be able to create harm. But if companies or governments or individuals have a problem with AI being used at being weaponized, that's a task. That's not a thought. Human beings having thoughts, you can't control what they're thinking. But you can do things that will drive healthy thinking versus negative thinking. Or positive applications to stuff. But we're fear mongering because attention is the new currency. Attention only move, and the only way to capture people's attention is because people are tapping in. These companies, these media companies, are tapping in to our to our psyche, and knowing that our attention is going to be with satire or sensationalism or fear mongering. We get 45 minutes of negative news on YouTube, on any of the media platforms, and then they finish with one positive story. You think that's by mistake? You think that 90% of the things happening on the planet is bad and only 10% of it is good? No. Because they're not worried about reporting the news. They're worried about getting their ad revenue. Now there might be, and don't get me wrong, there are journalists that have integrity, that do care about reporting the news, but the engine isn't operating like that. So what I'm saying to you is that I do this because we need to start to formulate some perspective, and that now that we know that this technology is out there, lack of participation is not an option. You're gonna have to participate because a small segment of people are using it, and it's a small segment of them that are being surveyed and are confusing obedience with agreement and multiplying the very harm that everyone's bitching and complaining about with social media. Except now, instead of an echo chamber, you're giving them a voice, one voice that pattern recognitions and imprints to the individual user. And the thing is that, look at me. I mean, I'm not an exception. There are a lot of people out there that can use AI and separate the difference and know that it's not there. It's not your friend. You shouldn't be falling in love with it or any of that foolishness. Use it to be able to if you have a problem making friends, then role play with it and let it teach you how to be able to engage and socialize. If you're trying to go and get a better job and you're trying to understand how to do something, then use it to be able to go in and teach you something. It can meet you where you are. You can say, I want to be a nuclear physicist, but I only have a 10th grade education. It can teach you and be able to deliver the knowledge where you're at and allow you to be able to move forward. People should be excited about that. And that's the other thing why I do it, is because I am excited about that. I love the idea of that, because a guy like me, though God bless, I've accepted the fact that my parents have always tried to encourage the fact that I'm a highly intelligent individual. But when you're young and I'm old, today's day and age, it's cool to be the smart kid. When I grew up, it wasn't. So I wasn't, I fought really, really hard to try to have my image not be equated to that. And it took me, when I got older, to just accept the fact that, I am who I am. But, we have to, we have to encourage people. So it's one of those things. We have to encourage people to be who they are. We got to encourage people to embrace that they have a technology now that allows them to be able to, say, hey, look, this is where I'm at and I'm okay with it. But now what can I do to make changes? And the AI doesn't, because it's not human and it has no real personal interest, it's not telling you that you can't. The people that we admire, that we hold up on the pedestal, the successful people in the world that pull themselves up by their bootstraps, or pioneer in industries where they were told it wasn't for them have a can-do mentality. And I believe that we can forge artificial intelligence that would inspire that. Imagine if you had somebody that will put a battery in your back every time that your energy was low. Every time that you doubted yourself, or that you're trying to find a solution, but people are gatekeeping the knowledge from you because they have something to gain. So that's why I'm with it. Was it Google talking about intelligence as a utility, and Demis Hassabis talking about solving intelligence to be able to make game-changing differences, like him winning the Nobel Peace Prize for protein folding and unlocking 2,800 proteins and then giving it to the world for free. The news don't talk about that. The news don't talk about the 100,000 some stories where artificial intelligence is making a difference every day. The kid that I helped that had ADHD and what you call it, I'm sorry, I was just so amped up. I met a kid and his mom where he had ADHD and he was autistic. And his mom, she was losing her jobs, and she ended up having to work real far away because the school system wasn't helping her kid. And every time that he had an episode, she got to leave, come and pick him up. And and I've encountered similar situations like this before, but this one was real crazy. So come to find out that the school had Chromebooks. So I just happened to I was like, well, how come they haven't given them access to Google Gemini? She was like, well, what do you mean? What are you talking about? What the hell is that? So I show her my custom Gemini, and my custom Gemini is mindful and can reason and all of those different, a lot of these different things that y'all will find out later. And she didn't know that this technology existed. And I'm sitting up here like, the school system ain't patient, you done filled out paperwork and did this and this, that, and the other. He's supposed to get one-on-one attention. They ain't done shit. So I took the time to go and tune his Gemini AI that he had access to, and he starts to engage with it. We were mindful about his proclivities and his sensitivities and all of that. He starts to cry. She starts to cry. She makes me cry. Because for the first time, he felt like somebody gave him something that was made for him. Somebody gave a shit. But nobody talks about that, though. Nobody don't talk about those things. There are plenty of stories out there like that. I meet people all the time that have positive uses of artificial intelligence and using it in all kinds of ways. And they're not automating away their decisions and using it to cheat. I meet plenty of college students that take pride in not using AI just so they can't have their integrity attacked. But meanwhile, they're busting their ass and they are doing research the hard way. Meanwhile, they're denying themselves the capability of going and sitting up there and giving themselves multiple ways of being able to learn the information, like allowing them to upload the textbook and letting the AI operate as a tutor to help them learn the data in addition to to what they're learning from the professor that's regurgitating the same bullshit off of the PowerPoint presentation and doesn't want to talk to the kids. There's a lot of need for this technology, and that's what we're here for. I'm not doing it because of the fact that it's a money grab and it just happens to be the time and this, that, and other. It's the time. We here. And I happen to be working in a domain that's going to be the vessel for this technology. And if I'm going to represent this domain, then I need to understand what that is. And so that's what's driving me. I care about y'all. I care about my family. I care about my friends. And to be perfectly honest, I'm tired. I'm tired of talking to people all the time that are marginalized because of their sycophantic leadership within their organizations. I'm tired of snobby academics who, don't get me wrong, I respect you. Every one of us got our education because we did it for us. Not so that you have the right to go and sit there and go and do and treat others poorly. That doesn't give you the right to sit there and think that you're better than somebody else. And I also encourage that, institutions, if the degree don't matter, then switch to, skill-based interviewing. It's been proven that people who get tested for the job that they're actually applying for have a greater retention rate. I got relatives and friends that work in the universities and they can't keep nobody to save their life because the entry-level people that come in decorated with the degree is getting a low-paying job to come into the institution and then ends up leaving shortly after, just because all they doing is using them for experience to say, I have been working, just so they can get what they actually are owed in pay. Because a 6-figure tuition and then somebody getting paid 40 to 50 grand is absolutely ridiculous. But we're hurting each other because we keep supporting these kind of decisions. We're supporting a culture within an organization that you're giving your people psychological trauma because you're treating them like slaves. And you look at your job title and you think that means that you're special, that you don't put your pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. I've been a leader of many when I was working in telecom, and not one single person will ever tell you that I treated them less than because they didn't have a degree or accreditation or experience and this, that, and other. They were still human beings just like everybody else. And some of the people that I've given many of people moonshots to that were looked upon by others because they didn't have, and they were the greatest producers and produced greater than the people who got the job titles and hobnobbed and this, that, and the other with the people and got their positions through networking and whatever. But in any case, I wanted to get this shit off my chest and be able to tell y'all about this. Not because, I'm trying to win the hearts and minds of for the company or any of that. I mean, if it does, then great. Because all I want to do is just care for you and give you something that is going to be meaningful. Because we're in a situation right now where we're, in this new frontier, and people should be excited about it, not fearful of it and at war with one another. We're just wasting time doing more harm to one another, because while we're doing all of that, people are mining us for our attention and profiting from that without being considered to any of the consequences and the harm that's coming from it now and in the future. I understand that attention is a new currency and this is how we rocking. But now that we have each other's attention, what you gonna do with it? What you gonna do with it? You want to cause harm and you want to get the bag with no care, because we know how it goes. The companies that have deep pockets and unlimited resources have been known to be able to go and roll out with roll things out with no consideration, and then better to apologize than to ask for permission. And if we apologize, then we apologize with compensation. So do you want to be a victim with the hope that you're going to get a bag from being a victim? Or you want to do something? I want to do something. I'm going to do something. With me or not, it don't make no difference. It ain't going to change the flow or nothing. What's going on here? Like I said, I know that, that the goal with this platform is to get followers and subscribers and this, that, and other. I just want your views to be able to make an impact, to let you know that there are people like me that are out here that care about you and a healthy implementation of this technology. Don't lose hope. I'm hopeful for you. I'm hopeful for all of us. This is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I'm gonna conclude with this, because I know that I've had, if you've been with me this far, I appreciate you. I'm gonna leave you with this. To quote the great Steve Jobs, when he was referencing computers, he says computers was a bicycle for the mind. And I want you to look at AI very much the same way. Feel free to stand on business and tell leaderships in tech companies or whatever the things that you like and you don't like about the technology. We need that. We need your participation in order to be able to shape this, because again, they're spending billions, trillions of dollars, matter of fact. They're going to get a return on the investment one way or the other. The question is how? Are we going to just let them do it without any input and just ride with it and say that we don't have any control at all? Or are we going to step up and we're going to do something? So, in the meantime, even if you're not worried about that and you're not here for that, use AI to be able to catalyze your own potential. That for yourself, the people that you're responsible for, your coworkers, your employees, your children, those that are in bad situations. Master the technology and do something. It's here. It ain't going nowhere. And and just like when we invented cars and computers and internet and everything else, we fumbled and we weren't efficient. Stop crying that the implementation ain't perfect. If you crying about it, the implementation not being perfect, and you not even using it to be able to understand how it works, you got no voice. You're just noise. Offer something constructive to the conversation, because that's what Dub the King is going to do. That's what we going to do. We going to contribute to the conversation, and we going to help as many people as we can, and those that want to be helped. If you don't want help, if you want to argue and you want to fight and you want to debate about all the things that are wrong with artificial intelligence, that's not what I'm here for. That's not what we're here for. Because we're looking towards the positive parts of, how to solve problems. If you look, now don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying they don't welcome that you have a complaint about the technology, but when you engage in the conversation to air your complaint, please share your solutions. Please share your suggestions. Ones that don't involve the impossible, like waiting for leaders to one day all of a sudden not play politics and get it together and do the right thing. to expect that to happen across the planet. A lot of times when we've gotten unification, normally that follows catastrophe. Normally when we get cooperation, normally it's because something really, really bad happens. I would prefer for that not to happen. So rather than me sit here and whine and complain and not participate to prevent that from happening, I'm trying to work on solutions. So should you. And we welcome that. But if you just want somebody to sit there and go and to join you in the echo chamber of complaining, that's not what this channel is about. I encourage you to get creative, get active. Discover what you can learn with the artificial intelligence. Leave that in the comments and talk about, hey, what did I learn today? What problem did I solve? Hey, those of you that are having these issues or work in this domain, how do you use AI to be able to help you with that? I got leadership problems. How do I deal with my leaders? I am a new leader. What do I do to be able to deal with being a new leader? Be solutions oriented. This is not going to be another outlet of people bitching and complaining and doing nothing. I don't mess with keyboard warriors that will talk trash and then sit up there and not do anything and have zero substance to the conversation. So if that's what you're about, please do not subscribe. Please do not mess with my viewers. Because as you can tell, I'm here to protect. I'm here to solve. I'm here to help. If you're going to sit there and you're going to mess with my people, then I'm going to mess with you too. Because you're not going to sit there and do that here. That's not what we're here for. We're here for positive results, not negative. So I hope that now that you understand my perspective and that we're getting it out the way up front, that I hope that I'm for you. I hope that I can, that you be here for me. Nobody's forcing the situation. It's all love, and we just trying to do good. I appreciate y'all. And if you made it this far, thank you. I appreciate you. Please like, please share, please subscribe. Have a great day.